back to another episode of the Open Source Cafe. And I'm really excited for this one because we're going to discuss one of the most asked questions, which is how to get from a service based company to a product based company. And we have Pavan here with us joining us today. Pavan, how's it going? Would you like to give yourself a quick intro?
Hi Kunal. Hi everyone. I'm Pavan. I'm a developer advocate at a company called Robusta. Uh, I do mostly open source and anything related to tech and Kubernetes.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you, and really, inspiring story. Because this is a question I get quite a lot, and a lot of folks who are in service-based companies who want to get into remote jobs, work for companies around the world. Definitely there are so many numerous benefits we can talk about, but let's jump straight into it. How to get involved, how you got started, your journey. So maybe can you share a little bit about your journey, like what did you study and what was your first job and how, like, just the initial years of your career from university.
Yep, sure. I graduated in 2020, so which is exactly during COVID. Um, I studied computer science and engineering, so pretty much the same as most people these days. And I started before I ended, like before my graduation I already had like a job with TCS. So after graduation and with the whole COVID situation, I had to like it was the only job that I had, so I did get into TCS, and I was working there till 2022, August of 2022. But my journey, so earlier when I was in college, I was involved in open source. I did a bunch of I tried at least doing some of my contributions. Most of the time I did not do any code contributions. Most of the things that I did was related to advocacy or supporting the open source projects themselves. um, and at the end of 2021, so because it was COVID and after that I didn't have to go to office, so at the end of 2021 I decided to get onto tech Twitter. And I got onto tech Twitter. I used to make these diagrams related to Kubernetes, and that's how I basically ended up this job and kind of ended up here.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we'll talk more about your journey. And you mentioned you were working in a service-based company like TCS. You worked there for 2 years, and then we'll talk about the transition a little bit more. But before that, can you share a little bit more about how are you finding your job now, like working remotely, having previously worked in a service-based company in India? Like, what are some of the benefits that you have seen? And uh,
Yeah, for me, I think the most important aspect is the culture shift and how things are here from how things were before. I think right now here I get to work and do things that I actually like. It's also my choice matters, but earlier that wasn't the case. I was doing only things that I were given. Now I can ask for things. For example, uh, I wasn't doing a lot of development, and I did not have a lot of experience in development. So I spoke to my manager, slash CEO. So I spoke with him and I said, these are the things that I think I can improve and also contribute better to the company. So now I get to do those tasks, which wasn't the case when I was in a service-based company. So I think it's just the fact of how things are in terms of culture.
Yeah, something that I have also definitely seen is the work culture. Um, right. So let's talk a little bit more about your experience, like how you got involved in this role. So can you share this whole journey, like from when you left your job and when you started looking for a new role and how you landed a role at Robusta? And I believe you do. I keep seeing your Twitter. You do a lot of learning in public, content creation. So two questions: how did you start? You know, from working from a service-based company, how did you start to look for new roles? That's question one. And question two is, how did you prepare for it? What do you think you did that helped you landing that role? You can take your time with that question. It's a very important one.
Yeah, so I did not quit my job before I started looking. So the main thing was I was doing a little bit of DevOps when I was in TCS. So I was technically doing Azure DevOps, which was the whole stack was in Azure itself. So what I did was I was also trying to learn Kubernetes, and I had an issue with learning Kubernetes, and that was to learn a bunch of topics, and then I had to remember them, or when I had to revise them, I had an issue of trying to go back to these resources, going back to Kubernetes docs or some other blog or video. So what I did was I created an image that had a condensed version of the whole topic, and I wanted to share this. So basically, I did a little bit of graphic designing and stuff before. So I was looking for a tool that would help me, and there's this open source tool called Excalibur, which like a lot of people in tech use now, and I used it to make diagrams. And around December 2021, I got onto Twitter and I started posting this. And the most important thing that I would say happened was people and the community loving these diagrams, and the community support plus networking that happened around all of these diagrams, and also me being active on Twitter, the number of people that I knew, and this all together came to um so when I was actually sharing these diagrams, uh, in one of the posts, Nathan actually messaged me, actually commented saying he would like me to also make diagrams for Robusta's channel. So Robusta was there already, and he wanted me to kind of help for his YouTube videos. That's how we basically got to know each other. So it wasn't anything related to a job, or that wasn't how our interaction started. And it took, I think, 5 months or so, and we got to know each other. And he helped me do a couple of diagrams. I asked him for help and review. And I was also, like I said, I did not do a lot of technical, um, any of technical stuff. So I also helped him with documentation or anything around that. So I was actually talking with him and telling these are the things that I don't actually understand. Maybe you could change this and stuff. And that's how they were also actually looking for a developer advocate role. So the role wasn't the reason that I got to know him, but it was also something that came along. And I think networking and learning in public, and I was also learning in public. So basically, I was posting almost every day related to something that I learned about Kubernetes. And I think all of these came together, and that's how I ended up getting this job. To be honest, it's tech Twitter, learning in public, community, and networking.
Amazing. One point I'd like to mention is that you mentioned that you got involved not because of the role, but because you were active in the community, and this is what networking is all about. Like when you network with people as a beginner, it's not just for okay, this person will give me a job later on, but you're actually interested in what they're doing, and try to help people, and then good things happen. Cool. Well, thanks a lot for sharing, Pavan. And um, you answered most of my questions. One question I have is, do you think maybe you can share a list of misconceptions around job hunting that were clear to you when you got into this new role? Because sometimes people think something, but in reality it's something else, and then you only figure it out when they have it. So what was your mindset about job hunting before this role? Like let's say when you were in college, and in reality what happened?
So I think for most people, job hunting, at least for me in my case, I thought it was mostly about just sending your resume to as many companies as possible, and maybe one of them just looks at them and gets back to you. So I also did a bunch of interviews in this process, and all of the interviews, at least the most of the time, it was the HR who spoke first. So the interviewer's perspective or the HR's perspective of me wasn't my skills or something. It was mostly the amount of pay I was getting. So if any of you obviously know the amount of pay that you get at TCS, so their perspective of me was the amount of salary that I was getting, which I really don't understand. At least that's how people are actually, which wasn't something I expected. So every time I ask, so every time I'm told to give a number before I'm judged by my skills. So I did not even understand the whole process. And after that, by the end, before I almost joined Robusta, I also got another offer. And that's when I realized it was also because of me, because of the person seeing uh, my learning in public on LinkedIn. So these sort of jobs, they reached out. When people reach out and ask if you are interested, I think it has more the value, or the company, the job in itself has more value into it than you reaching out. And I've applied for a lot of jobs on LinkedIn, and I also like sent a email from their own sites, and I hardly got any like responses. But when people reached out themselves, and when I was posting all these things, when they reached out, I think the most important aspect that I the shift in my perspective was when they reached out. They actually trusted in my skills, and when I said this is something I don't know, I so the people that were interviewing were totally okay with it, and all they wanted was that I should be able to learn. So me learning in public gave them enough confidence to believe in me that regardless of the things that I don't know now, I will learn them, and I over time I might be able to contribute better.
That's exactly what you mentioned in the first question about work culture differences. Um, and I think the much on an average, I've seen more open-mindedness, but that makes sense because if you can code in one language, for example, then you can learn another language for sure. Which is why let's say when you're giving your coding interviews at big tech companies, it doesn't matter which language you use because they also go with the same philosophy. Like if you know Java, you can do Python, C++, whatever. No, that's really good. And you mentioned about networking. So when folks, let's say, reached out to you, said Nathan reached out to you, but how can folks just get started with networking? Because not everyone gets reached out. Obviously, you started posting your diagrams and your tips and all those learning in public stuff. So obviously, you attracted relevant audience. So let's talk a little bit more about that. Like, how can you make sure you're utilizing your social media to the fullest to represent yourself and whatever you're doing? Because you nailed it. You did it perfectly. And it's not about followers. I know you don't have like 200,000 followers, and that's fine. That's not what it's about. I keep telling people that learning in public is about building credibility. So, can you maybe share about that? How your approach was when you've, let's say, started, and when did you actually start?
Yeah, right. So I think in the beginning it was mostly just me, but I do think I did reach out slash tag people. So it was Siam, I was tagging you, but it was just a little bit enough, so that I people get to know me. And the other thing was I was talking with people. I think that's one of the things that I really don't do much these days, or something that I think most people should do. Uh, when you comment on other people's tweet, or when you share things, that's when you mostly start to engage with people. I've seen many people who try to, or at least who start, but then they realize they are not most people are not interacting with them, or their posts are not getting seen, or whatever. I think it boils down to the fact that it's still in the end it's just trust. So when you talk with other people, when you engage with other people, the more people that see you, the more people that engage with you, that's when people start trusting you, and you build some credibility in the community itself. And after that, you have to start basically like helping people without the expectation of something. I mean, sometimes you just have to help other students. Like, what do you expect from them? You don't expect a job from them, but it's more about building that connection. And once you start seeing value, so for in my case, I was making this post, and I think uh, around the same time when I knew Nathan, uh, I got to know Sayam. So Sayam reached out and asked if I would be interested in joining Cube Simplify, which was really amazing. Like, it did change a lot of things for me. I made a lot of friends. uh, it's just an amazing journey. I think when he reached out, uh, we got to know each other, and that things happen. But it also happens that sometimes people might not reach out to you or something of that sorts. But then you can ask things. If you have seen any of Kunal's posts, most of the time he does say, if you have any questions, just ask them in public. I think it is one of the best ways you can get to know people. And when someone says share something related to Docker, you can go ask them about something specific in Docker that you don't understand in public. And many people get to understand that you are someone who's learning and putting in the effort to learn something, and they might reach out to help you, or you can reach out to other people. Uh, so it's all about engaging and how much you get to know each other.
Couldn't agree more, and thanks for the shout out. How do you find about these communities? That's one last question I have. So when you started your journey, you were obviously, let's say, looking for communities to get involved with. You mentioned a few. How do you approach, finding new communities to be involved with, and how do you get started with those communities?
Right. So I did not actually get involved with a lot of communities, uh, which is, I think, only a couple of communities. Brad from Brad McCoy was one of those people that I really admire. I joined his community. We did a bunch of live streams about Terraform. I was doing that. But I think when I was in that community, I realized opportunity, it does not uh, it does not actually come directly to you, and you have to step in and show people that you are someone who is interested, and you have these skills, and you might be interested in contributing something. Because in Brad's community, when I was there, there were a lot of people who were actually doing many things. And but the thing was, I actually reached out. So he was actually doing a stream, and asked if there is someone who could help him with the next stream or who would be interested. And I think when I reached out, he was very welcoming. I think you reaching out and offering to uh, you taking the initiative to offer yourself to do something for the community is uh, when something happens, and you get to be involved more in the community.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So initially, it's just about getting involved. That's the way to get started, and then if people need help, you can volunteer, and don't worry about if you don't know many things. You can learn on the go and contribute. Yeah, it was great talking to you, Pavan. Thanks for sharing all the insights. If you want to learn more about Pavan, connect with Pavan. You can connect with him on Twitter and other socials. I'll leave all the links in the description below. Very active on social media and posting some amazing content. So highly recommend giving him a follow. And yeah, thanks for joining, Pavan. You'll now see people in your DMs on Twitter. So sorry about that. But yeah, check him out.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Cool, man. Thanks for
Thank you.
having me.
Thanks, man. Bye.